In the introduction lesson, we looked at the shell model, which shows the relationship of man to his working and natural environment. We have already looked in detail at the pilot's interaction with other people, the liveware-liveware relationship. And in Part 1, we considered the effect of the environment on a pilot, the liveware-environment relationship. We have also looked at the characteristics of the central component, man, liveware, in several lessons. In this lesson, we will look at the relationship between man and the flight deck, the liveware-hardware relationship. This includes the design and layout of controls and instruments, and in particular, the automated flight deck. We will also look at the liveware software interface of the shell model, which is concerned with the non-physical aspects of the flight deck. These include procedures, manual and checklist layout, symbology, and computer programs. The word ergonomics, derived from the Greek words ergon, meaning work, and nomos, meaning natural law, is used to describe the study of man in his working environment. The most important factor that determines the overall size of an aircraft and its flight deck is the size of people. People vary greatly in size. The study of human measurement, devised by Bertillon in 1893, is called anthropometry, and the information obtained is grouped into three categories. Static measures height, shoulder width, the distance from the ankle to the knee, etc. Dynamic measures movement distances, such as reach. And contour measures surfaces, such as buttocks. Not every size of person can be accommodated on a flight deck, and so designers opt for a central percentage of measured persons, usually the central 90%, to the exclusion of the smallest and tallest 5% of people. In the UK, this central 90% of males measures from 1.625 metres to 1.855 metres. A basic feature of cockpit design is that the pilot should be able to view all important displays within the aircraft without the need to make excessive head movements. At the same time, he should be able to maintain an adequate view of the outside world. It follows that the cockpit space must be designed around a defined position of the pilot's eye. This position is called the eye datum, design eye position, or design eye reference point. It is often indicated on the central pillar of the windscreen in the cockpit. One design has spheres lined up behind each other. When the back sphere is obscured by the forward sphere, the pilot is sitting at the correct eye height. Once the design eye position has been set, and the anthropometric range of pilots has been determined, then the size of the cockpit workspace, the position of instruments, the amount of adjustment to the seat and pedals, and the distance to the hand controls can be established. The location and size of windows are also important. The design of the pilot's seats, as opposed to their position on the flight deck, has received a great deal of attention over the years. We looked at the topic of backache in Part 1, in the lesson on problem areas for pilots. But it is worth reminding ourselves that these are the main considerations in the design of pilot seats: lumbar support, vibration absorption, long-term comfort, anthropometric data, G-force protection, prevention of submarining, and securing the pilot. The live-ware-hardware relationship concerns not only the position of instruments, but also the displays on those instruments. It is highly desirable that instrument displays are standardized as far as possible in all aircraft, as pilots operate on more than one type of aircraft. In older aircraft with analog instruments, there is a standard T layout. This has the attitude indicator in the center top, the airspeed indicator to its left, and the altimeter to its right. Below the attitude indicator is the horizontal situation indicator, which completes the T-shape. To the left and right of the horizontal situation indicator will be other instruments, usually the rate of climb indicator and a VOR beacon indicator, or perhaps the turn and slip indicator. The displays themselves on conventional dials will usually be analog, but may sometimes be digital, or a combination of both. It has been found that for the display of purely quantitative information, such as fuel remaining, then digital displays give better results. Whereas for displaying qualitative or comparison information, such as airspeed, then analog is better. Compared to the myriad instruments in older aircraft, virtually all aircraft built today have glass cockpits, even single-engine aircraft. The glass cockpit is much less cluttered. Here is the glass cockpit from a Cessna Skylane. The glass cockpit design is usually based on two screens. One, the primary flight display, the PFD, shows the attitude indicator and the horizontal direction indicator. It will also show other performance figures, such as speed and altitude. The other screen, the multifunction display, or MFD, will usually be set as a moving map, but it may also be set as an engine monitor of temperatures and pressures. It may display weather and a library of information about airports, etc. Such has been the speed of advances in navigation equipment that even handheld devices will display speed, altitude, moving maps, and where linked to appropriate equipment, even the location of other aircraft. A pilot will not only want to know his position during a flight, but he will also want to know that the engines and other systems are performing properly. To this end, he will have various gauges and dials. The organisation of these gauges and dials is also important to avoid confusion and make them easier to read. So, a 4-engine aircraft should have 4 columns of instruments, in positions reflecting the engine position, starting with the outside port engine. New commercial aircraft will not have such a plethora of instruments. In fact, today's glass cockpit will allow the pilot to select the information he requires at that particular time, and just reveal that information. So during the cruise, he will be more interested in fuel economy than in checking pressures in the undercarriage. The lighting of instruments is easily controlled and can be set at a level to suit every occasion. It has been found that brighter cockpit and instrument lights may reduce tiredness. During lightning, cockpit lights should be at their brightest, to avoid the blinding effect of flashes. In the same way that instruments are organised so that they can be easily read and are in a consistent location, so are equipment controls. Controls should be standardized in their location. The throttle controls are positioned centrally, and their method of use should be the same. For example, on all aircraft, you push the throttle levers forward to increase thrust, and you pull them back to decrease thrust. Similarly, when lowering the gear, the lever is lowered, and when the gear is raised, so is the lever. Controls should be located so that they are within easy reach of all users. Those controls used most frequently such as the throttle, flaps and mixture control, should be close to hand, whereas those controls not regularly used, such as alternate controls, can be located further away from the pilot. Other factors influencing the location of controls would be the sequence of their use and whether or not they are used together with other controls, such as the throttle, the mixture and propeller pitch levers. It is also important that controls for different functions feel different to the touch. For example, the undercarriage control is shaped like a wheel. Progressive amounts of pressure may be required with some controls to provide feel. Indeed, with electronic controls, such as in the Airbus, artificial feel is built into some of the flying controls, requiring more pressure as the limit of the control is approached. This is, in effect, a safety device. Another safety device is the détente on some controls, such as the landing gear control. A physical ridge is incorporated into the control which prevents inadvertent operation of the control, rather like the mechanism in a car, which makes it impossible to accidentally engage reverse gear. Lastly, in this topic on hardware, let us look at warnings. It is essential that warnings attract attention rather than startle. The alerting function for important system failures should be oral, supported by a visual display indicating the nature of the problem.